the February building planning meeting in BZA.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, starting with the old minutes, has everybody had a chance to read them?
I have.
Okay.
First I typed them up, so
That's fine, I was just kind of looking around.
I typed it. Hopefully I didn't make any spelling errors.
Can we get a motion to accept them?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as they are written.
Can we get
January.
Okay. All right, motion accepted.
You have to actually have a vote.
Oh, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
There you go.
Sorry. It's been a month, I'm rusty.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. What do we have new, any updates or anything on our book?
You talked with Phil more than I have.
Hey, I talked to him, well, I emailed him today. I've emailed him several times in the last 2 months. I never got any reply back. So I called, left a voicemail, then he emails me, and I told him the situation you told me about, and about the Superfund, and give him the names that I talked to from IDEM, and he set up a meeting today. He was gonna call me again today. So I went ahead and emailed him, typed in everything that we needed to discuss. So he just canceled the meeting, so I'm assuming he got it,
Okay.
so.
So we're waiting on them to correct all
Yeah.
that. Okay.
So is the Superfund still active?
Right, we do not have it.
So it
According
should
to the
be
2 people I
inactive.
talked to from IDEM.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
And who knows why they haven't updated their website, because their website says it is still a cleanup, an active cleanup site. So, with Pete's conversation with them, hopefully they'll get that updated, but, I mean, there's just no need for it to be mentioned in our comprehensive plan, and there's no need for it to be on the website anymore if it's,
Old news,
That
correct?
was my concern, that people wanting to move here would see that Superfund site and say,
Yeah.
you know.
And that would be that way for years if it was stuck in there. It wouldn't be updated for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah, it'd be in our book for the next 10 years until they updated the book again, or 15.
Yeah, and I don't know, what Phil said that Okra had some edits that they required, so they sent American Structure Point some things that needed to be changed from their perspective, and I don't know what those were. He hasn't shared those with us yet, but he said they were working on fixing those that Okra told them to fix. So I hope that means that in the same process, they'll fix the ones that we've asked them to fix, the route for the Vandalia Trail, the issues with the downtown sidewalks issue and stuff like that. So trying to make sure that all of those things are,
As accurate as possible.
yeah,
Okay.
the spelling errors, just those kind of things.
Okay, so waiting on them, should hopefully hear something by next month's meeting. Okay. Anybody else got anything to add to that? Questions about that?
We're still under a timeline deadline on that we've got an extension to, right?
I mean, that, according to Mike Kleinpeter, the grant writer for us, he said that the timeline expired in December. Phil Roth assured us that he got permission from Okra to extend the time frame beyond that. He didn't say how much of an extension he got, but he got an extension, so.
Okay.
argue with American Structure Point that they didn't do the job they were asked to do and then we don't pay them, or do we find the money and pay them and then have our comprehensive plan anyway? So that would be where we're at, if that becomes a problem. I don't know.
I would
Is it
think
pos-
they would wanna get paid, and I would think they would know that if since they dropped the ball on things and that nature, then they need to make it right and keep moving forward if they want paid.
Sounds feasible.
Right, no, I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, business speaking wise, it's not like we dropped the ball on them. You know, they dropped the ball, they're the ones in charge of the putting it together type
Well,
thing.
Phil has insinuated in some conversations that we've canceled meetings on him, and I couldn't find any examples of us canceling any meetings, but that's what his, when we talked to him about that, he was like, well, you guys were not available on days and so blah, 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 but I don't know.
Mm,
Cover the rear.
yeah, I don't know. The argument could be said they didn't reach out to the chair either, if they couldn't get a hold of get a hold of you. They didn't reach out to the guy that is kinda sitting at the front. I'm not saying anything, just, that makes me important or anything, just saying you didn't reach out, so. But, anyways, notice we have a new gentleman sitting down here. Would anyone like to?
So, Mr. Tom Stein, I haven't met you before tonight, but Pete speaks very highly of you.
That's good.
Anybody with a nickname like Chopper's gotta be pretty good, so, he's here to kinda check things out with us and see if he's interested in being, a member of, either the BZA or the Planning Commission to help replace Rob when he leaves. Whatever, status we need for that. I know, if he chooses to be on the Planning Commission, then the president of the town council would appoint him for a 4-year stint on the Planning Commission. If he chooses to be on Board of Zoning Appeals, then the chair of the Planning Commission would appoint him for a 4-year term on the BZA.
Yeah, I knew we had discussed replacing Rob, on the building planning, because he would have that vacancy. And, Bob wasn't here the last time, so we discussed, since he was here with the BZA also, that he would be interested in that too, just if it comes around to that, to fill that, since he's already here, but we would have the opening on the BZA for Rob's position.
So-
At that point.
Bob, you're wanting to
Well, yeah,
serve on both?
yeah. Like I said, I might as well do it while I'm here.
Okay, I mean, you can, you don't
Yeah.
have to.
No,
You
no.
can serve on both. There's still, either way, there's a spot. I mean, even if Bob takes the planning commission spot, there's a BZA opening
Correct.
when Rob vacates that, so that's,
Yeah,
part
there's
of that.
two openings.
Which technically, all of you civilians on the planning commission, your 4 years is probably up. So maybe not Otis, I don't know, you might be
Right.
1 year away from 4 years.
I
So-
can tell you.
If you wanna be reappointed, then we can make that official and give you another 4 years. I need to go back and look at the records on when you were, but I think it's been 4 years, so.
Oh, I'm sure it's been more than 4 years, yeah. Cause I remember the very first one,
Yeah, technically,
that Rob and I,
your seat is a 4-year appointment,
correct.
and
I
then,
don't know, it was Ryan that got a hold of me.
so,
Yeah, when that next started, so when was that? I think that was
Yeah.
4 years, yeah.
No.
well, I do know, when I became the president of town council, I kind of reappointed, at least the 3, you and,
what was it, 2018, I think, when we first tried or the previous board first tried annexation and had the public meeting here with Mr. Macri, and Dan was leading the whole thing. That was the very first building planning meeting, because me and Robert always have sat on the zoning appeals board for long before that. But that was the first building planning meeting. So if that was the case, this is year 6. So we've got this year and 2 more years to go, at least for Rob and I see. I mean, technically Rob's around for another, 2.5 years. I don't remember.
Well, if anybody's opposed to being reappointed for years, let me know, and I won't, but
Yeah.
otherwise I'll just take that as you're willing to be appointed for another 4-year term.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just trying to do the math.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Do you have questions?
Just what would my job entail if I was on either one of them?
On the BZA, if you're on the BZA, so that's the Board of Zoning Appeals, when a person comes in and wants to, say, build a house, or like Dwayne Lanes, for example, he wanted to build his doubles. He met all the requirements on the outlying property lines for the setbacks, but his doubles between each of his buildings, he did not. He would have to set them closer together, so he had to file an appeal, because the zoning rule stated you had to be X number of feet apart. So he filed an appeal to say, hey, could I have them this close? And then we listen to it, we look at what does the zoning rules say, and we take a vote basically whether we're going to honor, accept his appeal or deny his appeal. That's basically the gist of the BZA. I mean, there's not much.
But anything outside of what the Unified Development Ordinance states is a requirement, if somebody wants to appeal that, the BZA handles that. So, even when Copper Top wanted to put up, their permanent sign in their parking lot on that side, we had a very restrictive sign ordinance. It was like 5 by, 7 or something like that.
It was
the
really
biggest sign
small,
you could
yeah.
have in our ordinance. And it was just kind of silly, but, so they came and said, we want to change this. So the BZA heard their appeal for a bigger sign, to do something like that.
We kind of take a more realistic approach sometimes to some of the not so black and white. What doesn't make sense for the community, for that area? Like with the sign, for example, it was very restrictive on that sign, and it was like, why is this? What doesn't make sense? It doesn't fit.
And it wasn't consistent.
Correct.
Throughout the town, there were.
Right, none of the other signs in town fit that ordinance anyway. So the bank sign, the
Correct.
Davis Floral sign, none of those were within the ordinance that we wrote. So some of that's our own fault. We approved the UDO in 2020, and we just didn't read it close enough and say, oh, this probably should have been changed when we were putting it together. But
And then on the building planning, like if you're on that board, we're working on a new book for the guidance for the town for the next 10 years of what the community wants to see, what we'd like to see. We present that to the town council if we get it approved, what the final draft will be. Basically, this is the book here with the zoning rules and everything in it. And that kind of lays out a clear vision. For example, this book would lay out a clear vision for the next 10 or 15 years. So that way, as council members come and go, or members on this board come and go, you can refer back to that book and say, okay, this was the direction the town was kind of going in, and go by those guidelines. We also do projects as they come along, like we're trying to get the parking lot across the street done, working within our realm to come up with ideas to present to the town council, and then can the council come up with the funding or whatever, or does that fit what the council wants to do? Or like the annexation, hopefully we can get that done one day, to grow the size of the town, the limits of the town. Those are different projects that come along throughout time that we'll try to work on, when we can. Really think there's nothing else really to add to that, right? That's pretty much the gist of it.
Well, I mean, if there were to be developers who show up in town and say, I wanna do X, Y, Z, then the, planning commission and board of zoning appeals would look at each, of their own rules prospectively, and, what, does this fit with the comprehensive plan, does this fit with, what the town needs or wants, and then move forward with, recommendations, those kind of things.
We're kind of like a buffer between the town council and developers too, basically. They have to come to us first and then go to the town council or we push it to them.
With some things.
Yeah, not all things.
There are certain areas that are completely within the realm of the planning commission and BZA to make decisions on that don't have to go to the town council. And I can get your email and I can send you the, kind of the handbook guidelines, the rules for applications and stuff. I don't know if we've updated it for the 2024 year yet on that. But, there's certain guidelines in even the application process that everybody has to follow, so, but I can certainly get that stuff to you, or Pete can, either way.
And then we just meet the first Tuesday of every month, at 6 p.m. And we have to have enough people on either board to be able to make decisions or hold a meeting.
And there's a big party afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, coffee and donuts in the back. Any other questions or comments or anything?
Not that I can think of right now at the moment.
Okay. Do you have anything, Pete, as far as
No,
from the
pretty well-
town?
You guys pretty well covered it. I'll give them a copy of the UDO. I can hand them it.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
They sold Deer Creek Pub.
I heard that. Actually, I didn't. I read that, I should say. I heard it first, and then I read it a few days later that they put a statement out saying they were thankful for the years of customers and all that, and people golfing, but I don't know if that development went through, or they're expanding the golf course, because I've been told they're supposed to put 9 holes or something on the west side of 39, and a bunch of, I call them higher end homes, probably not today, it's already like 550, something like that. I don't know if that got,
850 is starting,
okay.
according to Dennis Dawes.
I haven't got any more information on that. I mean,
Sure.
since I knew that this December was their deadline, and then I assumed with the announcement that they had sold, that the deal went through, that they were getting it done. Good thing for Liberty Township. I mean,
Could be, it's just as fast as some of those developments go in, there could be a lot of growing pains.
well, I think you'll have issues.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter, there's always growing pains.
Mill Creek East is already at capacity. I mean,
They've been at
So is-
capacity since me and him were there. I mean, seriously,
Cascade Middle School, Cascade High School, they're at capacity, so if we get, 700 new homes down by the golf course, are they building a new school? Are they
they should,
expanding the ones we have?
So that's what I was surprised about, because somebody said the average, because when we went through our grade size is about 115, 125 area, and they're still not that far different, I
No.
believe.
no, there's only like, maybe 130.
Now we were,
135.
we probably were well past capacity then, especially with the way they're able to find
I
teachers
remember
right
when
now,
they,
but
I remember when they put the addition on that building, that's how old I am, and it's funny, cause I could tell you where the plumbing's at in that building, I just remember it, I don't know why, but, so it's not like,
yeah.
I'm gonna say this as nicely as possible, they've known that it's coming for a long, long time, and if they haven't done their planning, that's on them, like, I mean, it's unfortunate, that's just, they're,
Well,
it's gonna grow, you're not gonna stop growth.
I mean, the Mill Creek school system has increased their tax rate significantly over the last 5 years. Like every year, they've gotten more than their maximum levy. So they're building up funds
Prepared for it.
for
That's-
stuff.
well, at
So
least they're
that
making
could be it.
Progress, but I mean, not to beat an old drum here, but I grew up here, and I seen it back then. I mean, I remember as a child, I grew up on 39 South 40, we literally played football in rush hour traffic, that's how, it wasn't busy, I mean, you could play out there, on the highway. Now you can't even walk across the street to check your mail. So, I mean, it's an inevitable sprawl, and that's what towns and schools and boards like ours are supposed to look at and figure out how to start budgeting and growing. So I mean, if they haven't done it for 20 years, that's unfortunate, because putting in $850,000 homes, those are people with good jobs, and those are excellent homes, versus putting in a $150,000 house or something, So I congratulate them for getting it done.
I heard
I really do.
Fourth of Rear's gonna be $1 million plus.
Good. I mean, that's gonna be a good addition with the golf course. I mean, that's excellent. I mean, I know you gotta have more affordable houses in the $200,000 and $300,000 range, but you get $1 million home,
Yeah.
you're bringing in a good tax basis too for the community as a whole.
Chopper'd be moving.
That'd be butting right up next to Sue Ann's farm there.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then they're building a bunch of houses in Danville.
Yeah, what's Danville gonna do when they get those?
Well, again, if they hadn't planned for it, that's on them. I mean, you gotta watch out for that.
I mean, they approved it.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do as a city to prepare for that next edition that comes through and actually directly affects us?
That directly affects us. Well,
Yeah.
you gotta have ground to put one on.
Well,
We
still
got a little bit of ground.
Yeah, we got that one down south.
You got right
How
south of the
exactly?
library, that's it.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as affecting the town, I don't think that
We
will
need to-
actually.
Cuddle up around your house there with your
Yeah.
brand new subdivision.
Right.
Do we need to focus on annexing more of that land, like to prepare for those
Yes.
housing additions to keep popping up, or what do we need to do?
Well, that would be smart on our group,
We'd
yes,
have more
for the
control.
town, if we could annex all of that, and like, one of the farmers that owns a majority of the property south of you going down towards Belleville, if we could do that, hypothetically speaking, if you could get Belleville annexed in too, well, you've just increased the tax basis, now we've gotta get utilities and stuff as development comes in, but you can work with your developer to do that, but we as a town can decide what goes.
Yeah.
As that growth happens, we have a say in it. Right now, we have one little area land-wise that we can put a subdivision in, right? So we got that, but let's just say that the developer comes to that big farmer that owns all that ground, and they wanna put a big tract of cookie cutter houses in. The county says, yeah, they can do it, boom, they're in.
So how urgent should we start pursuing that? I know we've been like since I've joined, we've been talking about it, but no, like there hasn't been any like traction. it
Well,
seems.
I'm working on it. As soon as we can get our book done, I keep calling it book, but as soon as we can get our book together, that is something I can go to the farmer that's one of the largest landowners, and I
Yeah.
can present to him and I can say this is the idea. Cause I've been having conversations with him on and off since the last go around. Because we got in, it was the open house meeting, was my first meeting to that. I think if we go about it again, we're going to, as a group, have to come up with a presentation that maybe lays it out a little clearer,
Yeah.
why we want them to join. Say,
And I
to
think
the,
that-
to the smaller tracts of property, and to the larger, but you gotta give a person a reason to wanna change, cause right now the person's gonna sit there and go, why do I wanna change, it ain't gonna bother me, you know, especially like, people say you don't wanna be part of Plainfield, okay, or we don't, but track number 1 up there and track 4 and 5 and 3, Plainfield ain't gonna, it'd be Plainfield would have to swallow Clayton to be able to, for that, for that determination or that reasoning to be used. We would like to grow the size of the town, square footage, and then include those people in the town, and then they have a say, you know, as to what goes on in the town, since they're butted right up next to, you know, to us.
We'd wanna do, like you said, a much better job of just promoting and presenting what our objectives are and why, and the pros and cons of it. Because that was not done very well the first time. We didn't have anything visual really to go by. We had some drawings that were passed out and stuff, but a complete kind of presentation on what we're looking at, why, where it would benefit the homeowner or the property owner to do that, and then with the cons against not doing it, of what might happen if your property is not in the town of Clayton.
Well, and also you have to look at, on the con side too, what is a negative of joining the town. That way people have a clear choice.
Well,
of,
yeah.
Cause there's always a flip side to every coin.
Yeah.
Of every choice. So I mean, you know, if we could, as a group, come up with, as we work on that, as we come up with
Right.
that, then, cause.
But the clear reason everyone was concerned about it was how it's gonna hit their pocketbook was the main thing. And then what kind of scrutiny would they be under a town administration rather than the county? Or even another, like Plainfield or somebody coming this way, or Danville coming down this way.
I know one of the biggest things too, one of the property owners, which he's since, to my understanding, he's since moved, but he had a very valid question. I don't know if we still currently, if it's been changed yet or not, but we had an ordinance that said you could not shoot a firearm in town limits.
I remember that, yeah.
And to me, that's a very valid point, because he has a farm, he can safely shoot down there and target practice and do everything right now. He wanted to join town, but why would he want to join when you now all of a sudden can't do what he's already doing as a daily activity under that
Right.
very restrictive ordinance? I mean, I understand you're not gonna do it right here in the middle of the street, but when you own 10 or 15 acres and you can safely do that, that was one of the big concerns with that
Right.
person.
So, but in that instance, that's a good example. So in that example, someone that wanted that changed would come to the BZA and ask for an exception or a change for their property to be exempt from that. So that's kind of the flow.
Yes, they could do that, or they could do it in the,
Or we could just
do it in the annexation at the time, like, you know, we'd have to maybe come up with a different, if you're in a subdivision type thing, though, like a noise ordinance or whatever. But if you have X number of acres and you can safely, which you have to use that term kind of openly, because who determines what's safe, but you put that verbiage in there, you can do it, you know. I know that that was one of the examples. The other one was, at the time, one of the farmers was afraid, even though it was said quite often back then, that if they annexed, they would fall into a higher tax bracket of their farm ground, and they didn't want to have to pay more taxes just because they were in the town. And I understand that it's state law, but at the time he was kind of like, hey, if you write this down in a piece of paper and you guys sign it and say that it won't change, then no matter who sits up here or no matter what quote unquote happens with the state law, even though more than likely it would never change, he had a piece of paper that he could fall back to, or his kids could fall back to. I know that was a big issue for that farmer at that time. You know, those are the things that all of us would have to be able to answer, you know, if we held another public meeting, questions of that nature.
We have a couple of vendors who live in Danville, actually, we have a couple. And one of them was speaking to me about it the other day, and she said she and her husband own quite a bit of land. And then there's quite a bit of land owned by somebody else behind them, so they feel like they have no one around for like 30 acres, so. But she said that Danville does not have any ordinance, any laws about what can be put where. So her friend and her husband sold their house because literally a gas station was stuck right in front of their house. So they owned like 15, 20 acres. They've been in their family for a long time, and the gas station was just put on that small parcel of land that they didn't own, that their land jutted up against, but just so happened to be at the very front part of their property and literally blocks their house. So that might be something that would encourage our people to not want to be annexed into Danville, since there appears to be, and I don't know if that's correct or not, those were her words, there aren't any zoning laws. The other thing is, we have 3 customers just in the last month and a half that had expressed concerns about Plainfield's taxes and their increase. And I know my husband and I just sold our Brownsburg home, which I truly didn't want to sell, that we had had as a rental for almost 13 years. It was very sentimental to us, had once been our family home, because in 1 year's time, our taxes went from, they assessed our house at less than 200,000, and the very next year assessed that rental property at just under 400,000, $399,999, and we couldn't afford to keep it. So we sold it, and now it's starting to come back down again, but that kind of, just for lack of a better term, just laissez-faire, you know, I don't know, no holds barred on the pen, it just, and we even appealed it, and they said, no, this is what it's assessed at. And your assessed property value is generally higher than your tax assessed value, but it was disproportionate by twice as much the other way. So that, I'm sure the town treasurer or whatever, or whoever's in charge of that, was just doing her job. I think her name is Reagan, a young woman. But it is the main reason why we had to sell our Brownsburg house just last month, because of that crazy jump in taxes. So I don't know if these things would be incentives, if this would incentivize our, you know, I don't live in Clayton, I live 6 minutes from Clayton, but we have businesses in Clayton. It just feels like if people understood what it could be like if we belong to Danville, if we belong to Plainfield, it's vastly different. Like I've expounded and lamented before, it took us months and months and months when we lived in Brownsburg to get approval to open our little restaurant that we had already done tens of thousands of dollars worth of work to, and it was a rental property, it wasn't even ours. And we could not get approval for signage and to open, and the paper laid on the, if you face the desk, the left-hand corner of the desk for literally weeks and weeks and weeks untouched. I could go in and see it there. We'll get to that as soon as we can. Never doing anything. That's Brownsburg. I loved living there, and I loved the school system. I hated the small government part of it, and we just have completely completely different situation here. Unique to Clayton, unique to Hendricks County, and it is actually so beneficial to open a business, to own a home, to be able to come into a small municipality, a small town hall, and be able to voice opinions and feel as if they're actually heard, discussed, and ruminated on earnestly. So I feel like that might be something we could put into some verbiage for them that would say, like Dave said, in a concise manner, pros and cons, but I really feel like it's vastly, you know, the preponderance is on that positive side, and that is speaking from experience, that is speaking from other people's experience. And to lose that, I think it'd be detrimental to our little town. I really do. Conversely, I have to be honest, I worry sometimes that we're popping up too many of the really small duplexes, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I think Dwayne Lane's probably a lovely person, I don't know, and I have certainly been the person approving, because why would I say nay to something that everybody else is approving? And if it's gonna benefit the town, I'm all for it, but I do feel like we have to be cautious with popping up so many of those and taking those little tiny parts of our town that are unique and just, again, you said you didn't want a cookie cutter,
Vinyl Village.
you know, you didn't want a
I
cookie
don't have
cutter housing addition popped
I don't
up.
have a problem
We
with
have to be kind of careful
Their
of that,
houses.
because I took a side road the other day and I was like, wow, those are really crammed in there. And that's not, you know, putting down anyone's,
Need a balance.
I just feel like we've got all these cool, really cool houses, you know, older homes mixed with newer development, and there's so much charm and potential charm in downtown Clayton. I think we have to be a little bit careful of
That's
of
the
that.
problem the town has right now, though. Like, if there's no annexation done, there's no room for the town to grow at all. Like, so if someone does want to move to the town, they're not gonna be part of the town because, I mean, basically, why they kind of put those in there is because it was a setting like this. It was easier to get done than going to the county, you know, to put those in. But I think it does have to expand, you know, to a point within reason. But there's no room for expansion at all, though, like none. But I think you have to set up districts or something like, you know, hey, this can go here, that can go there, but so you're not building right in front of your residence and build a gas station or whatever.
I mean, yeah, you worry, cause like, hypothetically, D&D Auto wanted to expand, well, you're kinda landlocked.
I just gotta spend a lot of money. It's just a check and a bulldozer.
I mean, it's just.
I guarantee you Dwayne would sell.
It's
I
the
mean-
same with like if Miss BZ's wanted to expand it, I mean, there's working with them, if we wanted to open the second floor of Copper Top, we would have to spend tens of thousands of dollars for a civil engineer before anything was done. But yet you can drive to Rockville and literally go to the second floor of those buildings and you're like, am I gonna fall through?
Exactly.
Am I gonna fall through? There's no heating, no air conditioning, no insulation. You can see sometimes bat droppings, and you can see through the floors how, I don't want us to get like that either. But at the same time, you know, it sometimes feels a bit disproportionate. And so I feel like we have a really beautiful gem here. And I love the little town of Clayton. And I think everyone does a great job, especially Doug. I don't know how you know so much, but you really do understand the workings of a small community and all the, I mean, I listen to you speak and how well you are well versed in the town hall workings. It's just the ordinances and the variances and all, you do a phenomenal job. But I do hope that we can continue to grow our little town, but grow it in a way that helps as many people as possible. I know you're not gonna please everybody. Believe me, as somebody with 40-something vendors, you cannot please everybody. You can make yourself exhausted and wear yourself out trying. But I feel like the town has it's an untapped resource in many ways. So I hope we can continue to grow carefully and grow our little trail and grow our little head of the trail. I am 100% behind making that a beautiful trailhead. I I know, it's not my money, so I get it. I don't have any money, so it's like the treasurer and everybody has to vote on that, but man, that could be a really awesome public parking, restroom, bike stand, water fountain. I mean, it would just be, to me, it's a no-brainer, just a no-brainer.
That would be beneficial when we finally run, if we go with the thought process of coming down Michigan, like we've always talked about, coming down through town to help all the businesses down through town and everything, and bring you right to the wonderful downtown of Clayton, like we had discussed. You know, I mean, at minimum, let's face it, at minimum, we've got to have that lot leveled off and stoned and put some concrete, the parking curbs up there, because as we have more residents in town with the doubles, people wanna come to a town council meeting or come to this meeting, they got nowhere to park. There's not enough parking, I should say. We've got to get that project done, as the town's able to come up with the funding to do it. Obviously can't be pulled out of thin air, but as the council's able to come up with money to at least level it and stone it and make it a usable or more usable lot than what it is now. You know, I mean, we need that. The town needs that, I should say. The town hall needs that.
It's in the perfect location too. It's across from the town hall. It's
Correct.
a nice anchor for the town. It could be beautified. We could all pitch in. You know. We could all donate some time and donate some landscaping and.
Well, I mean, the question is it was only, we had a bid for what, 20-some thousand to do dirt work and stone?
Well,
I
and
mean,
the
that-
restrooms that you talked about, that just love that idea.
Yeah, I mean,
Prefab.
that would work, but I mean, if we could get the stone in, the shrubs and plants can come after that. I mean, if we had it stoned,
Yeah.
I mean, if we could get that for $20,000, I mean, I think we could ask, this board could ask the town to put that in the budget next year when the town does their budgets, what, in October or August?
Well, October is when we have to have it finalized, and then
We start
Hold on.
building in June.
Okay,
Budget
so
will be
June,
June.
we need to come, so we need to have a plan, come up with a budget, we need to come up with a budget, and if it's somewhere around $20,000 or $30,000, we need to come up with that, this group needs to present that to the town, or I'll go present it to the town
Yes.
council,
Mhm.
to ask them to put that in the budget, that way we could budget for it, and, I mean, I assume you guys, when you say put it in the budget, you're gonna allocate, move money around from the general fund, I assume is how that works. So the following year, we could get that dirt, we could get that, at least get it stoned, graded and stoned. So in 25 then, at the earliest. So, let's see,
Do you
so
know
in May, I need
how
to
many
present,
square feet it is, parking lots?
12,000 square feet.
I was gonna say, I don't remember off the top of my head, but
It's 12,000 square feet.
Now, if the stone that we need, would the stone have to be covering 12,000 feet? Or would you allow room for shrubbery and the restrooms and the, just?
Well, with what we looked at for pricing, the gravel was kind of killing two birds with one stone, is getting that down as, you know, not only a temporary parking lot, but the actual foundation for the future
Right,
building.
a base.
So, yes, so we would put that to the edge, and then they would build on that all the rest of the stuff, whether it's a curb and a sidewalk or,
So it would be 12,000
yes,
feet that we need this thing for.
right. So we would wanna go to the edge of the property with that land, with that step.
Right.
And then it would be that base for them to build onto, cause I didn't wanna,
Or even concrete in the future.
Right,
for
I didn't wanna-
concrete parking, yeah.
to do that step and then, oh, they're gonna pull clean
Right.
that up and get rid of it,
Sure.
then, so it's, I was kinda trying to
You have to put a base
think
in,
of a way to,
yes. You put ones in or twos, depending on how soft it is.
But it would need to be, someone would need to come in and level it out first,
yes.
and then put the stone in.
Yeah, and that, when we got the two bids, that was, you know, the requirement that we wanted is them to bid it based on their, you know, leveling, but also, you know, taking into consideration any drainage that needed to happen. Obviously, that parking lot already slopes pretty significant down towards that blue house,
Right.
on the other side, on the
Yeah.
east side.
Mm.
So, you know, we can't let runoff
Sure.
go and flood her house, so we have to make sure that we're,
So would that be additional to the amount you, the
No, that
That's
was,
no, that was
included?
included,
the drainage is included?
right.
what's included in the bid was to go ahead and bury the sewer line
Okay,
for the bathrooms, so we wouldn't have to dig it back up once the base is down.
Right.
They just have to go straight down.
sure, okay.
I do have a question.
Pardon?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys could answer this or not, but I know we have a budget for Parks and Recreation. We have a line item for that. Either A, is there not enough money in that for that, cause it's Parks and Recreation, it fits that for the trailhead, I mean, we're putting the base in, right, it fits that. Is there not enough money in that line item, or,
That's what we use for the playground equipment, correct?
Right, so we have about $90,000 in set up for Lambert Park. And that each year, we tend to use 96% of that on Lambert Park, on all the different things we have to maintain there. Whether it's, you know, the equipment for the kitchen or the, you know, the mowing, I mean, all that kind of stuff, the playground equipment that is hugely popular,
yes,
that was
and that's
one thing.
packed every weekend, that's warm.
Right, when we got that put in there, the new equipment, went over very well.
Yes, that was a good
A lot of
addition.
people, yeah.
So
So,
my other,
it is, I mean, it really is used, for that.
then I guess the next question, or the B part of that, if it's used, which I kind of assume you guys work, when you're writing budgets, you kind of keep it kind of close, for each individual, whatever subject, line item. Would it be something that would be easier for just increase, like for the council to just increase and budget more into, because we're gonna have to maintain that, right, or continue to develop that, so if they added, say, $30,000 a year more into that Parks and Recreation's budget, and then that way we've got a 5-year plan or whatever to develop that, parking lot, and the maintenance that would go with it, which I know at some point it would switch over to maintenance, like the street maintenance, I would assume it would switch to that line item at some point. My assumption is, I don't know about down there at the park, if the pavement in the park is part of the street maintenance or not, if that's the park's budget.
Yeah, that's all the parks, but,
Okay,
yeah, motor vehicle highway funds will not cover a parking lot or any of those kinds of things. So motor vehicle highway, is, you know, very much your
roads,
lanes that your cars are driving in.
okay, so then we would need to have a budget for that,
Right.
for maintenance for that, either way. So if it was feasible, instead of just doing a one-time budget, like line item, so hey, we can do this, if we presented it to the council as, can we increase the Parks and Recreation's budget by $30,000 in each year? So this year we get the base, next year maybe we get the paving, the following year we get or whatever, you know, we could work with it, we have that continually to work with, and then once it's done, then we have the extra money to help maintain the park and maintain the now parking lot that it has to take care of, and that way it's always kind of wrote in. It's budgeted for every year, it's not a specialty line item budget. I guess would that be a better option to present to the town? Like going that
I mean,
route?
that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Just with the budget as tight as it is, where do we pull that money from? So, and it's not impossible, it's just a matter of, okay, we have to get blood out of a turnip sometimes to figure out how are we gonna, you know, do these things that are, you know, one, required, do the things that are, you know, needed,
Best
do
way
the
to
things
kick,
that are nice to have. do
best
the
way to
things
kickstart something like that is for us to get a grant or something that would allow us to start on that and then get the bulk of the expenses out of the way and then modify the budget year after that to handle what's left that's needed. And that way we're not pulling like an abundance of funds from other expenses that we've already got.
Yeah, I was just curious what would be the better route, like, maybe
should
we don't
probably look
increase
up
it
and
to
see if there's some
30,000,
grants.
maybe we increase it slowly over,
Yeah.
you know, 5,000 a year or something,
Yeah.
and we kinda just because we do have more houses, more taxpayers in town, more property values are up. I mean, expenses are up too, I know that for sure, but we have more that's coming in, and then there's the more, if we could get annexation, or let's say we get some sort of development on the one big piece of ground that we do have, there's more tax dollars to be had to come in.
Potential.
Correct.
Annexing these properties into town will not increase the tax base at all.
No, it's farm ground.
Right.
Correct.
So
But
there
it
will be
increases.
zero benefits to our budget and taxes
Unless they become
unless
they
the,
become developed.
unless the property owner decides we're gonna change, it's no longer gonna be agricultural land, it's gonna be something else. Then all of a sudden, the town benefits from that.
Right, that's the long-term goal for the town.
Sure.
Which
Yeah.
I thought that's what you said the one farmer wanted to do, was not sell it in parcels, sell it all together because he was hoping to sell to a developer, or was that Dan? That's not-
Well, I have not ever heard that from anybody. That's been communicated multiple times that they were,
That was
like, the
Dan.
Brennemans have been talking about, you know, the possibility of doing this. Mr. Penner he has actually drawn up plans with houses on it. It's just a matter of the two developers he talked to last year said, oh, you don't have municipal water, see ya. And they left, they said,
Right.
we're not gonna touch
Which
this because you don't have water. It's just, there's an uphill
Yeah.
climb that we have to do with these kinds of things, and every year that Clayton doesn't, we lose money. So, I mean, it's, you know, kind of this weird double-edged sword. We have, you know, a quaint little town that everybody loves being a little town, and they don't want it to have the, you know, big development things come in. But as our assessed value goes up and the state Department of Local Government Finance says you can only grow your levy by 5% every year, and so our tax rate has dropped by, you know, more than 12 cents per $100 value over the last 6 years, because of the fact that our assessed value has gone like this, and the DLGF says you can grow by 5%. So the only way to balance that is our tax rate has to drop.
Right.
So,
Well, there's one thing that might help us, because you brought it up about the water. I know at one point in time I had found where IDEM, it's called the right, I remember reading about it. I got down to where you had to actually apply for it, for a grant that they do yearly. There's no time frames or time limits, but it's called the right to have clean water. They started that after the old thing up in Flint and other towns like Flint. Basically, this group, the town council, or even a private landowner, that you know, if I was a big farmer, right, and I had the area to do it, you could present it to IDEM to get grants through IDM or very low interest loans to build water systems. And basically the gist of their requirements from what I was reading was you had to show them that it was going to be able, you had enough customers to hook up to it over a certain period of time. Didn't say what period of time, just a certain period of time. That it was going to be a viable business, basically, is what you're presenting to them as a business model. If we could pursue that, maybe this group or the town council or something of that nature could pursue that avenue, because it takes a town, I think it would take Pete to do it, or one of the council members to do it, because you guys are the town. I don't know, I mean, I guess any one of us could do it, I guess, as the town, if we officiate as the town, lead on that.
Sure, and, just big problem with grants is Clayton has a wonderful, group of, good earners here.
Mhm.
So our median household income is $76,000 a year.
I read.
So grant places go, why can't you just do this yourself? You have plenty of money.
No, that one was
And-
different. When I was reading it, they didn't fall under those kind of grant rules. They wanted to see what was the need, why do you need, what is your need? Is
Sure.
it your town, or do you have an immediate neighbor that could use water? Well, we do. We have a school that needs water, they're having problems out there. We know Amo has problems with water, we know Stylesville for sure has problems with water. Belleville, even though they have water, anytime there's a fire, anytime anybody
They
tries
should
to,
define the need, because
we can
our-
sell our water.
in our water,
We're on an aquifer.
right,
Right.
we
So-
have no problems getting water here.
Right,
You can drill a well 10 feet deep and
but they
get water.
can't, and we can sell that to them as a
Sure.
viable business as well.
That's
It's the way, if you
awesome.
read that, when I was reading that, that's where I was really surprised that they didn't. It seemed like they leaned more on that than what like a normal grant would be, what your gross income was. That was, they took that more of a factor of, can this community help that community, or this community can't drill water, can this community drill the water and sell it to them, basically. And that was really intriguing on that aspect.
Sure.
Cause it's different on how they look at that to get clean water for people to drink. Ever since Flint, I don't know.
Do you think that the people of Clayton would have a problem with selling water to other communities? The only reason I say this is because of what's going on in Lebanon with LEAP and trying to get water from Wabash River and.
I think that you're gonna have pushback no matter what you do. You're gonna have pushback whether you sit on,
Sure.
you sit there and do nothing, or you have pushback if you're doing something. I think, my opinion of it is, I think you'll have a bunch of people that would say, well, I have a good well, why do we need to do this? But what they don't realize is the homeowner's insurance benefit. If we had water just in the town, if we had fire hydrants, and you can hook up to the water as you go, so you make the deal, I don't know exactly, I'd have to look it up, but like the sewer, you need to hook up to the sewer after, like if your septic goes bad in a town, I can't remember exactly how it was laid out, but you can hook up to the water if your well goes out or something, right? It's there, it's for you, you can hook up to it. But if we had fire hydrants through our town, your homeowner's insurance is gonna drop considerably, because your fire department doesn't have to have tankers running water. So I mean, the benefit there for a homeowner could be a very significant savings because of the rating for that. And then, if we had that, let's say we wanna bring a developer in, even on just Mr. Penner's property, now we've got the water,
Right.
you talk to the developer, hey, you gotta run all this water to all these houses, and you gotta bring it from wherever we stopped at, you gotta bring it into you to do that. Or we could look at it the other way, hey, you're the developer, you wanna come in here, we'd like to have water, help us get it, type thing too. There's a couple different ways to do that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's plenty of water here. I mean, I've heard people make comments to me that when the factory used to be open, when it was an injection molding plant, they ran the town dry. They didn't run the town dry if your well was at 25 feet or 35 feet or whatever. You had to go to 100. Most wells are 100 to 150 feet, roughly, in this part of the town. So drop your well down. You know, I mean, that's just, they had a railroad station right here at the end of the street that had 12-inch main wells, and for whatever reason, back in the 90s, 80s, they decided they didn't want them. The town, because the railroad was going to give them to them. Hey, you want these wells? That'd have been perfect to put a pump station in. They were already drilled, they're already there at that time. I mean, you can't go back in history, but they were there. We could have used it. But the people then didn't want it because we got good water. Why we need it? Cap it off. I just, you know, I see both sides of it, is what I'm saying. But I really think moving forward, we're gonna have to have water. Period.
I agree. I don't think there's gonna be an inexpensive way to do that, but I agree that we need water. It's just a matter of trying to figure
Right,
out
I understand.
how to go about that. I mean, even with, you know, when we were, you know, pushing for, you know, all of our improvements to the wastewater treatment plant and sewer, you know, we were begging the state revolving fund, Indiana Finance Authority, you know, to give us certain, you know, credits for the need that we had here. And we even, you know, tried to say we're gonna loop in our, you know, school district that's outside of the town into our plan. And, you know, the engineer company said that would be, you know, a good way to sell them on that this was worth funding, and they said no, they didn't fund it. So
I can see why they didn't. You guys were handed, or I don't mean to be mean, but the people that were maintaining that sewer for X number, 35, 40 years prior, whatever, 50 years since it was put in, and we have all these lines that need to be fixed, and we have all that, and instead of going through and finding, like, how you guys did the water infiltration studies, and it took several years to do that, blew liners in and all that, they built a bigger plant. Well, okay, but at some point in time, the bill comes due. You know, we got a saying on tow trucks. You either take the time to do your maintenance, or the maintenance is gonna make the time for you to do it. One or the other. And if you don't handle that, somebody at some point in time is gonna have to foot the bill, and it's gonna be a really large bill instead of handling it a little bit at a time through over decades. So yeah, I mean that was a. Did I want my sewer bill to go up? No. Nobody wants their bills to go up. But understanding business and understanding how things work, it's gotta go up, dude. It should have went up over 20 years, and it would have been a nice slow curve instead of a straight up line, basically. I mean, because at some point,
and we didn't jump the sewer bill up as high as they told us we should. I mean, they wanted us to go much higher than that.
I understand that.
It's like,
Let's
not do that all at once. But yeah.
And that was appreciated.
Well, you always get kickback.
Does the town have somebody who actively seeks like grants that the town qualifies for?
I mean, we have a relationship with Mike Klein-Peter, who he's a grant writer, and so, you know, as we try to do different activities, he's involved. He wrote the grant for our Okra comprehensive plan. He wrote a big portion of the, you know, stuff related to our state revolving fund request that we were denied. You know, so he's very helpful with that. We don't have somebody.
And to add, we were denied because of him. We were denied due to the point system that they use and
Right.
that has all these different metrics on what the town has, what the people in the town make, what we need, and so that's, it wasn't due to him not being able to do the grant writing.
No, I didn't know if, I mean, I figured that, there's probably guys out there who, actively seek for towns and they try to charge a percentage of, whatever they get for the grants, but,
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we obviously seem to have an issue with the budget. You said it's very tight, we're not, really able to cover a lot besides, like you said, squeezing blood out turnips. But I mean, I just didn't know if there's a way that, or if there was a way for the town to, find somebody or find something to actively seek for grants that would qualify for. So,
And I'm sure there's, lots more grants out there to find that we haven't hunted for certain things. I mean,
because we have a task, it seems like we run into an issue because we look for a task for that certain thing.
right.
But the town as a whole, has all kinds of things, moving parts going on. So, it might be beneficial. I don't know, just to find somebody that maybe would look into grants for us to where, oh, well, we didn't even know we could get this, or this things might pop up. I don't see what bad it could be, what could cause, but
Part
this is the thing.
part of Pete's job is to do that, and he does that, and Doug does a great job at it as well, keeps his ear to ground on grants and things that are available to us. There's a group that as town council people, and Pete belongs to, is AIM, that's a conglomerate group, is that like a nonprofit?
No, they're a for-profit.
Oh, okay.
Accelerate Indiana Municipalities is what that stands
Yeah.
for.
And they have a newsletter
Yeah.
and a program where they send out information to Pete and to other people about grants and things like that. The gentleman that we had in place before Pete did a lot of work as far as getting grants. So, I mean, it's not like we've been
Not actively
seeking
I gotcha,
out. We do actively, and they both do a great job of looking for things and finding them. It's just, you have to, it's almost like looking for a needle in a haystack, because you see one and then you get into trying to apply for it and then you find out we don't qualify.
Well, it was kind of like I was told with accountants. You can pay a certain accountant a certain amount of money, they'll get your taxes done, all that stuff, but you're still going to owe at the end of the year. And you can find this one, you got to pay a little bit more in the beginning, but it's going to save you a lot more in the long run.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there's something around that department of, actively seeking for grants, but that's just the question.
We used to have a guy, well before my time. Rob has talked about it several times, that we used to have a company, and it was in the budget as a like the council's budget, town council's budget. It was in the budget. They were a hired firm, and they were, I can't remember, it was somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 a year. And they actively pursued grants. They did other things, but they had a complete, like a headhunter basically for grants, for projects that they could foresee in the planning book or whatever. And to my understanding from talking with Rob and a few other people, that at the time, after a few years of that happening, they decided that whoever was in charge of the town council, whatever, at that point in time, decided that that was too much money in the budget for that group, because I think they handled some of the zoning things, kind of did what Pete's doing, and got rid of, basically took it out of the budget. I don't think they were full-on town managers, but they did some of the duties that the town manager would do. But I also know they had a full-time seeking department for grants. Because that's been discussed with Rob and I have discussed that, from the past. I mean, that was years and years ago, probably 08 or something, but it's hard to say 08 years ago. It was. Yeah. So no, we don't have like a headhunter. That would be nice, but it's going to cost. Because if it cost that much back then, I could imagine it's probably
We'll
double
see a
now.
percentage out, whatever the grant is, or how that works, but.
Well, it's like that
But
idea.
that's how Mike Kleinpeter operates that way. He doesn't get paid for writing the grant. He gets paid for administering the award. So
And he's come to us before with a grant, thinking we could qualify for it, and done all the prep work and things for it. And we've gotten some, we've not gotten some. So
I'm just trying to figure out a way to, help me basically kind of work like suffocating the way. I mean, because unless the town itself decides, hey, we gotta raise taxes, which, nobody really wants that to happen. I mean, if we're threatening, if our, household, income's up here and we don't qualify for certain grants, to help, get by, I mean, we're just kind of sitting there suffocating. I mean, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm just trying to.
Well, even just the mindset of raising taxes, the town council gets told by the state, you have the power to set your tax rate. With one exception, they have a cap on our levy every year. So while we can say, we'd really like to, instead of our budget being $310,000 this year, next year we'd like to be $400,000. Well, then the DLGF comes in and says, you can't jump up that fast. You can't jump that high. So, you are limited, your hands are tied to.
yeah, that would be even if every citizen in town was completely okey dokey with raising the taxes, and then the DLGF will come in and say, no, you can't do it that much. That's ridiculous. And then they'll set another number below that. They decide on, not. So then you can do it another year.
So obviously year over year. I didn't know if
If you're at 310,000 and you can raise 5%, you're okay.
People aren't going to be too happy over time.
Okay, yeah. No, I understand. I'm just trying to figure out a way where the town can maybe generate some other, income coming in to where it can help fund some of these projects and all that fun stuff.
I said this before, I think to a couple town council members and stuff. When I moved up here, I moved up and worked up by Zionsville. And back in 1987, Zionsville was just about like Clayton, with the exception that it was a little bit closer to Indianapolis. And there was a softball diamond up there. I played softball up there, went over to the Friendly, had beers, things like that. And it was just a small little town kind of thing. And it wasn't very big. And there were big homes, of course, going in way out into the farmland up there. But over time, that town, and I'm not saying that we're like that, but we are a close example to that.
Yeah.
That if Zionsville managed it very well when they started booming, how they took care of the downtown area, and then they took care of the outer area after that, and they managed what they did very well. And I think in a way we should use that as an example of what needs to be done here, because if you look at our map, our size and everything, it's very close to the way Zionsville was back in 1987.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. Indianapolis and Carmel was coming in
Yes.
and surrounding Zionsville, and they had to come up with a plan and growth and everything. So, and I'm sure they had a lot of roadblocks just like we do as far as funding and stuff. But where the difference there is, where we're at 70,000 as a median income, they're probably at 120,000, median income, and then so more money coming in, more things to do with it. And I don't think there's a difference between what a person in Zionsville would expect from a town that differs from a person in Clayton would expect from a town. So I think the expectations would be the same.
Now the question would be, is if a developer came in, how a town could grow quickly, right? Say a developer comes to, just for example, Mr. Brenneman's property coming down 39. That's a huge development, big development. Wants to commercial complex wants to come in right there, but they say, hey, after we build this, we want the town of Clayton to have it, to benefit from it, because we're right next door to you. I would assume that that's how some of those towns are growing, because they have the utilities to offer. They have a reason for that developer to want to come into that town versus being outside of that town.
Yeah.
Or like they buy the ground, they voluntarily annex it in, boom, then they develop.
Right.
I think that would be
The biggest carrot on a stick you can give to a developer is to have a TIF district. So you create a TIF district, and then the developer works in that TIF district and changes the value of the properties by their development. And as that happens, the TIF kicks in with whatever criteria you set up in that, and the developer can be granted, you know, over the next 23 years, you get 50% of this tax increment finance that happens. So from day one, they start making money on their development, even though, you know, one, they're selling houses or commercial properties, whatever they're building in that area. But they still, even after they've sold those, over the next, you know, 23 years, which that's the standard time that TIF districts are developed for in Indiana anyway. So then but they continue making that money. So they know that they forked out a bunch of cash ahead of the deal, but then they're going to make that back. I mean, it's kind of like when you go to a
So
car
does the
dealer and
town
you buy
pay
a
them?
car and you buy it on financing. The car dealer knows, or whoever's financing knows, they're going to make that money back and more by financing it. So it's the same thing for this developer. So
So to
they've
understand-
financed in what they're going to make their profit over that time frame. And it can
So
be
to
written
understand,
however
you
you want.
mean that we give them certain tax breaks? Or are you saying that the town
You-
itself would say, hey, because of the tax increase that we're gonna collect, you're gonna get a payment for 23 years of X?
Right, they're not getting a tax break. What is happening is all the taxes that are being collected for that
The upper percent.
region is that some of it is going to the taxing municipalities, whether it's the, you know, county, the library, the school, the town, whatever. But some of it is earmarked, set into its own area. That's going back to the developer no matter what.
Yeah, basically, it's like, it's,
Right, so whereas, like right now, every property in town has, you know, this property tax that's being collected, and if you look on your tax bill, you know, X percentage is going to the county, X percentage is going to the schools, X percentage is going to the library,
right. So in
Whatever.
essence, so in
It's
essence,
split,
the town
you know,
is paying,
but in a TIF district, you have, you know, that is shortened into a smaller percentage of that tax that's being collected, because you've written into your TIF rules that some of it's going back to that developer to pay them for what the
right,
benefit they gave you ahead of time. So if a developer would have continued a conversation with Mr. Penner on this and said, okay, you don't have water, but maybe we could work towards that. And then they come to the town and say, make this a TIF district. And then I get to recoup my cost. I spend $10 million putting in,
wells.
you know, a well and a water tower and pipes,
mm,
you know, throughout my development that could then also be extended into the rest of the town as needed. Then I get that $10 million back over the next 23 years because that TIF money is divided. And a portion goes back to them.
right, basically the town's paying them for that through the taxes they're collecting. I mean, instead of paying it up front, like,
Right. But it's not,
I just wanna make sure I
it's not
understood
an
that.
optional
Right,
tax amount, it's built into it, so we don't even get our hands on it.
right, it
And have to
automatically,
pay them,
yeah.
it goes straight to them.
And that makes sense, I mean, if we're
Right.
willing to do
That's
that.
the way
The
that'd be a
problem
smart-
is that we don't have a redevelopment commission and the ability to make a TIF district in Clayton yet. You know, is
Doesn't mean
that
it can't
something
be
that we're
done.
going to do in the future? You can, it's just, that's another step that we would have to take to get there.
Right, that makes sense, I mean, that really does make, I mean, I was just curious if you knew of that happening, like in Zionsville, for example.
Oh, I don't
Around
know.
our town, we have a lot of development going on south
Yeah.
of 40. that's gonna push north, on the north
Yeah.
side really quickly. I mean, really quickly, maybe 10 years, but
Yeah.
really quickly in the terms of government.
Yeah, and so I coincidentally, I worked for Zionsville Schools from 1999 to 2008. Did the IT work and stuff for them, so I knew a lot about Zionsville. I was up there all the time, so I saw it before it ballooned and got big, and then I saw it after, where they had well, the school system and everything had a well-organized plan on how they did everything, and I don't know of the challenges that Zionsville from 1987 till I started working there in 99. I don't know what they encountered, but you know, I'm sure we could go back and read about it and find out some of the things, or just chat with someone that is with the town, find out what struggles they had from '87 till whatever. I think Zionsville kind of boomed around 98, 99, somewhere in that area. There were a lot of development, a lot of farmland got sold, a lot of those communities got put in up around there.
Kind of like what we're seeing down at the interstate.
Yeah.
So we got about 10 or
It's
15
about
years.
10, it's about 10, 15, I
Yeah,
think.
we got about 10 years before it to be in Belleville, I think. I mean,
Yeah, if they've already, if they've truly already annexed up to Miles Road, or are in the process of annexing already to Miles Road, it's not gonna be long.
it's not even that. It's just from a development standpoint. I'm putting any other town outside of it. Just development. Look at what's going on.
Well, there's people
I'm a
moving in
I'm a
town.
money guy, right? And I know you know money. We know money. Where are we gonna go? We're gonna buy Dwayne Lanes and go doze all them things down to build a great big old building? No, we're gonna go right out on the bare ground. Even if we gotta pay more per acre, it actually costs us less because it's bare ground and we can just start digging and putting foundations in. And so, looking at 39 and that corridor, because I know that's what it's called, the 39 corridor. They've ate up all that ground down there that's easily buildable. They haven't built on it all, but they've ate up the majority of that open farm ground. We're really close, we're a few years out from that all being
We've already
developed and built.
They bought it already over to zero now.
That's what I'm
they're at
saying.
70.
That's what I'm saying. So they've got all that. Well, then you got a bunch of houses between that and 40. Where's a lot of the traffic at on 40? It's a main thoroughfare. It's busy. Where's all the farm ground? It's just on the west side of the bank and the west side of what Sam and Dee's used to be, the old diner down there. It's all bare ground. That's I'm telling you guys, that is where there's going to be the next development right there. As far as whether it's a Burger King or something, at some point somebody's going to come in and write a big enough check.
Well, that's all commercial. Especially if the town ever does end up annexing that whole 40 stretch right there is gonna be all commercial properties all the way over here to zero.
It should be. It's all 40.
But that's just a long way down the road. But
Well, what I mean is the people in our council need to all the different boards and stuff need to understand that that's coming quick. And I say quick. To me, quick is like tomorrow, but government speaking, quick is 10 years. It'll be here. We might not be, but it'll be here. I mean, as far as in these capacities. Yeah, 10 years will go really quickly. I mean, look at I-69. Right out of high school, right when I graduated, my very first job was land surveying. We were down on the river setting the pins on the pylons to tell them where to put the beams for this new highway that was coming in. That was in 2004.
Wow.
And they finally made it to 465, and they're building the bridge. And I think they said they were hoping to have it done this year. If I remember the news. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, that's
it's inevitable.
right. It's coming.
That's controllable if the town is control of it. And
Right. We can see what it does, but we are going to have to make those hard decisions. Someone is, whether it's us sitting in this capacity, you guys that are council members sitting on the council, we're going to have to make those not so pleasant decisions of, hey, we got to have, full-time police department. We got to have water. We got to have whatever it is. It's going to cost you guys. Sorry, but we got to have it. We're going gonna have to understand that, we're gonna have to recognize it and move forward with it as a group and have just a clear understanding that stuff is gonna happen soon. Cause I don't wanna, I hope to not sit in 10 years and go, well, I wish we would've thought of that. Can't think of everything, but I mean, the bigger picture stuff. Wish we could've got that done.
Well, I mean, and you never know. In 10 years, if Berman decides he doesn't want to do it, or doesn't do it, or the town decides they don't want to do it, that's divided up into 10 different parcels. Be sold off pieces here and there and there. And then trying to get it annexed from that point, it would be even more of a pain.
Right, you got 10 people saying yes or no versus one for that subject, for that parcel, but yeah, I think that is something we need to work on as a group. Anything else? Comments?
Ready to hell out of here.
I understand, I can see it. Can't get nothing done if we don't talk though. But, I don't have anything else to add for this evening, do you?
No?
Nope, okay, we'll call it meeting adjourned.